Where's the camera? Is it there? I should do it for the camera more, shouldn't I? The Gospel of John, chapter 13, beginning at verse 21. After saying this, Jesus exclaimed in deep distress, "In very truth, I tell you, one of you is going to betray me." The disciples looked at one another in bewilderment. Which one of them could he mean? One of them, the disciple he loved, was reclining close beside Jesus, and Simon Peter signaled to him to find out which one he meant. That disciple leaned back close to Jesus and asked, "Lord, who is it?" Jesus replied, "It is the one to whom I give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in the dish." Then he took it, dipped it in the dish, and gave it to Judas, son of Simon Iscariot. As soon as Judas had received it, Satan entered him. Jesus said to him, "Do quickly what you have to do." No one at the table understood what he meant by this. Some supposed that as Judas was in charge of the common purse, Jesus was telling him to buy what was needed for the festival, or to make some gift to the poor. As soon as Judas had received the bread, he went out. It was night. When he had gone out, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man is glorified, and in him God is glorified. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and he will glorify him now." This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. A view from the right-hand cross. The title of the painting shown in our booklet and on the screen for today's service is very interesting. The view from the right-hand cross. It's so interesting, I want to stay with this image rather than focus on our readings. I'll refer to the gospel reading just at one point and very briefly. What does Nicola Saric mean by the right-hand cross? I guess he, and it is a he, must have had in mind the story in Luke's gospel of the criminals or bandits crucified either side of Jesus, and one of them crying, "Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us." In Christian art, that bandit is usually shown on the right. So are we looking at Christ through his eyes? If so, we stand, or rather hang, condemned. Condemned by the other bandit on the left, condemned by Luke also, it seems, condemned by countless preachers over the centuries. For Luke has the other bandits, the one on the left-hand cross, reply, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed have been condemned justly." Really? Was crucifixion ever just? For we are getting what we deserve. No, you are not. You are getting what a brutal Roman governor ordered on one of his worst moments. But this man has done nothing wrong. Then he turns to Jesus and says, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus replies, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." So the bandit on the right-hand cross, the bandit we don't see in Nicola Saric's painting, is left out, barred from paradise. Its doors slam shut in his face. He is left in the dark, in the pitch black. And it was night, we heard in John's Gospel, and it was night. The bandit on the right-hand cross knows what that means. Left in the dark of Jesus's rejection of him, the pitch black of God's rejection of him. As some of you know, I have a passion for Rembrandt and have long thought the church should canonize him. I think he deserves to be declared a saint much more than most canonized theologians. For me and many others, his greatest work on the crucifixion is not a painting, but an etching. It's known as the Three Crosses. And there on the left is the bandit hanging there in as relaxed a pose as anyone can have on a cross, while the bandit on the right has his head thrown back, his chest sticking out, and his arms behind him draped awkwardly across the crossbeam of his gibbet. The light of heaven pours down from above, and he seems to be straining every muscle and every sinew in defiance of it. Rembrandt ran off a number of copies of that scene, and in the end, the copper plate got so worn in the press, he had to rework it. In doing so, he produced what was in effect a new work of art. The bandit on the left has changed little, but the one on the right is now almost entirely blotted out. Thick darkness descends on him almost vertically, and the light of heaven, more fitful than before, now catches but the very end of his crossbeam. He's left in the dark, in the pitch black. It is one of the most terrifying aspects of a most terrifying scene. And now Nicholas Sarich invites us to see things from this bandit's point of view, and invites us to question Luke and to ask, what was so dreadful about what the man said? Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us. Even if that's call yourself the Messiah, you couldn't save a dog. What's so dreadful about that? Is it more dreadful than Moses accusing God of bringing disaster to his own people, as he does in Exodus, of being no better than the brutal Pharaoh who was inflicting such pain and grief upon them? Is it more dreadful than Job yelling at God and accusing him of being a sadistic monster? Is it any more dreadful than Jesus himself saying, as he does in both Mark and Matthew, my God, why have you abandoned me? Let's face it, the words of the bandit are very mild stuff compared to any of these examples. I noticed during the pandemic that the church has begun to recover sight of the prayer of lament in its scriptures. But it is still blind, it seems, to the prayer of complaint. The prayer of complaint, often bitter complaint against God, has a central place in the prayer of the Bible. It is there in full measure. And as we've already seen, it is heard even on the lips of Jesus. My God, why have you abandoned me? If Mark or Matthew had put it like this, hey God, what the hell are you playing at? I thought you were my God. Well, whose God are you? And where are you? Where are you? Perhaps then we might have sat up and taken notice. Only once in my life have I prayed like that in public. In the safety of a theological college chapel among staff and students who knew me very well and whom I could trust. I prayed like that in a shout because we'd met together in the chapel after 3 young girls daughters of one of our ex-students had died in a fire at their vicarage. I've had no cause to pray like that since. But that is only because I've had so very many blessings in my life and so very little in the way of tragedy. For others, that is not so. For some of you, perhaps, that is not so. I remember a priest telling me years ago of a woman who'd lost her child, leaving her place at his funeral, coming up to the small coffin, laying her hand on it and crying, "I think God's a shit." And did God condemn her? Did he bar her from paradise? If he did, then I want no more to do with him. No, of course not. God opened his arms wide, like the Christ figure on the cross in our painting, and embraced her. That's what resurrection means, freeing his hands from the nails so he can embrace that woman and hold her in her grief and take her with him in due time into paradise. We can say anything to God, anything, so long as it is from the heart, for then God can reach us. We do not have to praise God all the time, as many Christians say we must. God is bigger than that. Luke has the story of the bandit left outside paradise in the dark. Mark and Matthew have Jesus say, my God, why have you abandoned me?" Mark and Matthew get it right. At this point in his gospel, Luke gets it all wrong.